Welcome back to another sunrise here in beautiful Pittsburgh. So today I'm just going to talk about how everything in your life is a choice. All the way up to, your life situation. Your whole life situation right now is an accumulation of choices and decisions that you've made. Whether you think you've done it consciously or not, or you are aware of it or not, you have made choices in your life to get you to where you are today. And I think the only thing you really don't have a choice in is where you were born into this world. So that means like your environment, your situation, your family. But you do have choices to change them. We see it a lot of people playing the victim card and just wallowing in their pity of, oh, I'm so screwed. I just got born in with like bad genetics, poor. I'm born into poverty. And maybe this is just the privilege that I have since I haven't necessarily had to endure too many hardships. But it's honestly true. I don't think that changes the fact that everything in your life is a choice, right? So people we'll give an example of like a high school dropout who's working at McDonald's or something now. So this guy, why is he working at McDonald's? This guy's like, oh, I'm blaming the system. The system's fucked up. Now I'm working at McDonald's, just pissed off at his life because he's working at a McDonald's. But, he had to have an accumulation of choices in order to get him there. Nobody's putting a gun to his head saying you have to work at this McDonald's. Good morning. And so when you're thinking about the choices you make, that's really a decision on his end. He could very well go find another job and, sorry, there's a helicopter right here. I'm gonna wait for it to pass. But yeah, no one's holding a gun to this guy's head saying you have to work at this McDonald's or we're gonna shoot it. That's a forced decision. So he willingly went and got a job at McDonald's, and you could say, oh, he's still like fucked by the system or whatever. But go back into the history of previous decisions he's made. Why is he working at McDonald's? Because he has bills to pay. Why does he have bills to pay that aren't like getting met by a different job that he wants? Oh, because he dropped out of high school. He didn't get his high school diploma. Okay, why didn't he get his high school diploma? He chose to drop out. That's a choice to drop out of high school, right? You could very well just stick through it. High school's not that hard. It's really basic shit, to be honest. And it's more or less just like, all right, people will have all these arguments against schooling, and I mean, I'm also kind of on that side. Maybe not against education, because education is very helpful, but I think that the schooling system could use a redesign for sure. Anyway, that's not the topic of today's video, but it ultimately comes down to choices. He had a choice to either skip school or go to school that day. He had a choice to try to cheat on the exam or study hard for it. There's choices that you make in order to, and obviously this is a hypothetical, so there could be many millions of factors that are involved in this, but it's just a simple fact that you have choices. What's stopping you from making the choice to study hard for your exam, prepare, do good in class, like show up to school every day? What's like stopping you from making those good decisions, and why do you immediately have to go to the bad decisions and then blame it on external circumstances? That doesn't really make sense to me. And that's kind of just the whole aim of this video, is to realize that you have a power to recognize that as long as you're like in the living right now and living in the present, you have the chance to change the trajectory of your future. Granted, it is like limited by the decisions you've made in your past. So say if you're, I don't know, a criminal and you're sitting in prison, not that you'd really be watching that right now, but if you're in the prison cell, you have limited options as to how you could change the trajectory of your future compared to some teenage kid who's like fresh out of high school or fresh out of college, right? Because they have more freedoms because of their past decisions, right? So I'm not saying that you could literally like be delusional in, oh, I'm gonna escape this prison cell or something. You have to like deal with the consequences of your actions, obviously, but that doesn't mean that you can't like make the choice to change your life around, like once you get out or while you're even still doing time. You could use that time productively to like work out, read books or something like that. So I don't know, I'm just saying that the power, like the thoughts in your mind, nobody can control that. Nobody can force you to think certain things unless, you know, people might be able to get you to say certain things if they have like a gun to your head or something like that, and they might be able to force you to do certain actions, but your perception of those actions is something that nobody can touch, right? Those are exclusively your own, and a lot of people aren't even in control of their own emotions or their own thoughts, so maybe that's why they feel like everything is being forced upon them and they have no choice in this world and they have no agency in their life. And that's really a sad way to live, I think, personally, that if you feel hopeless and you feel like you have no control over anything that happens to you, you're just screwed. Like, I don't know, you have to have hope in this life that you can turn things around, because it's like that saying where it's like, where you say like, he who thinks that he can or he can't, both are correct, right? If you think that you can't, if you're just doomed, and the fact is nobody's going to save you, so nobody is going to save you. But if you just think that you can't personally turn your life around, no matter where you are, no matter how much debt you're in, all that shit, you could make conscious decisions to move your life in the direction that you want. But all of these things, your thoughts, your words, your actions, they have to be in alignment, and you have to just realize that everything in your life has been a choice, besides where you were born and what family you were born into and what situation you were born into. But you have chances and choices to make those conscious escapes. Like people that are even held in like North Korea, they do have the choice to try to escape. Granted, it could cost them their life or whatever, and maybe you'd see that as not a choice, because it is like a gun being pointed at their head if they do try to escape. So maybe that's a more controversial thing. And this was probably a pretty controversial video, maybe not for being in the self-improvement space, because people in this kind of niche are more open to the idea that their life is in their control. But you know, I think it's a common narrative, especially just in the world, in the majority of the world. Majority of people, I think, are hopeless and helpless to external situations and play victim to certain events that happen in their lives, and they don't recognize that they have the choice to make things better, I guess. And if you have like other certain situations that you think I'm missing out here, then definitely be sure to leave it in the comments, because this is a topic that I'd want to hear some opinions on, not just everybody saying like, oh, you're right and all that stuff. If anybody has a valid, you know, like counter example, I'd really love to hear that, because from what I can see and from my point of view, my perspective, I'm pretty sure that everything in your life, your whole life is just, and your life situation is an accumulation of the choices that you've made, and that's kind of where you are today. But you do have the chance to turn that around by making the good decisions and the good choices to turn your life around from your current like point that you are today. Anyways, thanks for watching. Like the video if you found it an interesting discussion. Subscribe if you're new, and stay on target.